Good morning and happy Wednesday. For those of you that are new, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, welcome back to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, episode number 7, Pardonne Moi. My name is Bill, and on today's show, we're going to talk aviation, gaming, and automotive news. We're going to learn industry terms with jargon in a jiffy. Help you build a success pathway to success with a career corner, live listener Q&A, and our discussion this week, proper etiquette in our respective career fields. Joining me this week is fellow co-founder of the Three Green Simulations Group and flight sim extraordinaire, Tommy D from Level Flight Simulations. Tommy, how you doing this morning?
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody?
I'm doing great. Just audio check on TikTok Live. It's always TikTok Live, man. This morning, it never fails. Um,
It is.
Let me do something here. All right, let's try that.
Okay, I'm getting messages that you cannot be heard.
I can't be heard. Uh-oh, that's not good. Um, hmm. Okay, because it's working in. I can see my microphone's working in Discord. I'm getting feedback on TikTok Live when I talk, so my mic's working. I think. This is it working on your side? Can you hear me, Tommy?
I'm actually adjusting your audio right now. I hear you. You're 5x5 with
Okay.
me. It's on my live feed on TikTok that you're not coming through.
Interesting. Okay, Bob. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting confirmation on my side, which is fine. We'll figure this out. Unfortunately, this week has been an absolute cluster, kind of for the both of us. So, as you guys have probably noticed, Justin's not here with us. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to weigh it. But last night, Justin messaged our group kind of abruptly and said, I quote, "In a decision I weighed heavily, I won't be participating in the show going forward. Regards, Justin." Um, the past couple weeks he hasn't been available. He said he was handling stuff at home, which we completely understand. Tom and I told him to take as much time as he needed to. We could handle the show while he was handling things at home. And then just abruptly, a little under 12 hours ago, or a little over 12 hours ago, he messaged us that, then proceeded to leave all group chats, unfollowed Tommy and I on every form of social media. I don't want to say he's ignoring our messages, but we have sent him messages to make sure everything is okay with him. He has seen the messages but hasn't responded to us, so that it is what it is, I guess. And did everything but basically block us on social media. He also went through all his previous like videos and stuff, the last 6 months of content that involved Tommy and I in there, and has completely obliterated him from all social media, including his Twitch. So like those streams are gone. TikTok, all the videos like that he had me tagged in, and vice versa, gone. So I'm not entirely sure what is going on, but it's safe to say that we probably won't see Justin in the future on this talk show. So with that, buddy, I hope everything is going well, Justin, and good luck on your future endeavors. Now, moving on to the more important things here. We're going to start this week off with aviation news, uh, kind of while Tommy kind of fixes up that stuff here. So we will go into some aviation news, as always, starting off with this week in aviation history. This comes from skytamer.com. So today, or this week in history, is 12th of November, or November 12th in 1903. The first fully practical airship, the Labaudy, makes a successful flight in Paris, France. And the 190-foot long airship flies 38 and a half miles and achieves a speed of 25 miles per hour. So the significance in aviation is just that we're starting to see more practical forms of flight occurring, if that makes sense. Um, so we'll do so more practical forms of flight starting to occur and start to pop up. And as you can tell, this is 12th of November 1903. So this is still when people are experimenting with balloons and not necessarily airplanes, because airplanes don't necessarily start until December 17th, 1903. So about a month later. Now, on to some more important, not important, but more recent news. We're going to be talking today about Samson Sky, which is a experimental aircraft kit manufacturer, and their flying car called the Switchblade, and this is from simpleflying.com. So the big news this week is that it made its first flight at Grant County International Airport in Moses Lake, Washington State. It flew for a total of 6 minutes at 500 feet around the airport. The data from the flight will help build multiple prototypes for this type of flying car. And according to the article, it's been in development for 14 years, which is wild. Here's some specs here for you all to look at, because the specs are kind of important too. Um, let's see. So the specs, it's $170,000. So first of all, it's going to cost nearly as much as a house, and well, nearly as much as my house when I bought it. It's going to be $170,000. It will be street legal, so you'll be able to take this vehicle, drive it on your neighborhood roads, drive out to an airport or airstream, etc., etc. And and you can take off. So it's completely street legal. As of right now, they're toting a 500-mile air range at 13,000 feet and a cruise speed of up to 190 miles an hour on the ground, or I'm sorry, in the air, and on the ground 125 plus on the ground. I always love how car companies are like 125 plus on the ground. Well, you're not going to really be doing 125 plus on the ground if you're going to be, unless you're racing. So I don't know. I always think it's funny that they do that. Regular automotive fuel. This is perfect, so you don't have to pay for a little bit more expensive 100 low lead. But it is regular automotive fuel, so you can just go to a gas station and fill up. And they were bragging about a hybrid electric system built in. However, I don't know if it's because it's proprietary information or what the deal is, but they didn't really go into too much detail. But this is where it's going to get a little interesting. So for it to be certified by the FAA, the Samson Sky Switchblade is what it's called. It's because of its wings, the way it folds out. It's only certified under the Experimental Aircraft Certificate, which means that in order for it to continue to be certified under that certificate, the aircraft owner, so whoever buys a $170,000 Switchblade, is going to have to build 51% of the aircraft because it's classified under that certificate. So not only is it sketchy because it's going to be a flying car, but the aircraft owner has to build 51% of the aircraft. I don't know about you, but I generally speaking don't trust myself to build an airplane. I'll fly them every day, but I don't trust myself to build it. But Samson Sky says they will have trained staff to simplify, educate, and guide the build process. $470,000. I sure hope so. And as of right now, there are 2,300 reservations for it. So I guess orders in a sense across 57 countries and all 50 U.S. states that have been made. So it's definitely going to be. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Uh, Come on, Bill, you got this. You can figure this out. Um, it's definitely something that's going to be in demand. 2,300 reservations across 57 countries and 50 U.S. states. What do you think, Tommy? You gonna buy yourself a flying car? It doesn't say you have to have a license technically, because I gotta double check, but I think you can get a sports license and fly an experimental.
Great concept. Not for this guy though.
No, you're not gonna fly.
Uh, I can use tools. I can put things together. I could do maintenance on my own vehicle. Build that and trust myself with it. I might as well go buy a 1985 Kawasaki Ninja. Not happening.
You
No,
don't want a crotch rocket, Tommy?
no, no. Uh,
um, I'll send you a picture of it, Tommy. It's actually kind of interesting looking. It's not. If you think flying car, especially based off the ones they've already made and tested, it's literally like that. It's exactly what it looks like. And the
yeah, I'll
system,
have to see a picture, but it's still like, you know, right here. It's saying no, don't do it. No.
yeah, no, I don't even. And it was funny. I was reading the article, and I was like, man, I like this, right? This is pretty awesome. And then I scroll down and I see the 51% needs to be built by the owner. And I'm like, nope, that's where I draw the line. I know people that like building their own kit planes and stuff like that, but not this guy. Not this guy. I'm not. No, sir. No, sir. So it'll be interesting to see the fact that there's 2,300 reservations across 57 countries and at least one, according to this, in every one of the U.S. states. Is pretty interesting. It's very, very interesting. Um, And I Snowy, do me a favor, unmute Ben. I'm sorry. In our TikTok live, he's a friend of mine. Don't, I don't know why Snowy muted him. Anyways, so that is it for aviation news today. Up next is gonna be Tommy talking about some gaming news.
Thank you much, Bill. Good morning, everyone. I actually just have uh, an article. As you guys know, Bill and I are friends offline. This is not the only time Bill and I hang out. We do. It's not uncommon for us to be texting and talking while Bill's away at work. He had brought to my attention the um, development of GTA 6. Now, I've been a GTA fan as well, and did a little bit more research, and this is actually coming from PC Games. As early as 2022, GTA 6 was already in its initial development in a closed alpha. They did produce a possible release date for us, which is very, very exciting. Here's the problem. They're going to release the full version between April 1st of 2024 and March 31st of 2025, which means they still have a long, long way to go. It's basically going to be a new and updated GTA. They had a big security problem with it. It was leaked. There was a hack and a leak of 90 videos worth about 53 and a half minutes worth of footage. Now, Rockstar has gone in there and pretty much got everything off the internet as not to leak a product that they're not going to put out, or things that are in alpha or beta testing that will not make the final cut of the game. But the game is definitely in development. It is going to be available online. Um, there should be a community update, give or take February 4th of next year. And they'll start, I guess at that point, the teasers are going to start for it. Um, there is a lot of rumor that is around. The article that I read, and I read it twice to make sure, and I even have some notes that I emailed to myself about it. I'm not going to go too in depth into it because Bill and I do not start rumors on this talk show. That's just not what we do. If it's not factual, you guys ain't hearing about it. But we have a lot of information about the game so far, but it all ends with it being an enclosed alpha right now, which means they're probably still writing and developing the code to get it going. So that's where we are right now. Kind of a stalemate, but for those of you who are GTA fans, it is coming out.
Yes,
It,
and it's yeah, I am super excited about it. The big thing is it's been under wraps for so long. There's always been rumors. There's been fake videos. In fact, there's fake people on TikTok Live doing live streams that are like, "Oh, this is GTA 6 playing," or "Go click this link." That's not. It's nothing has been released to the public. But our first sneak peek will be early December of GTA 6. For those people who love Modern Warfare 3, GTA is my GTA 6. So I'm super excited about that. But anyways, Tommy, continue.
yeah, I'm actually super excited for it too. The last I played GTA was on console. This will be my first time playing on PC, so it's gonna be pretty interesting. Kind of glad I got that extra terabyte of solid state put in. The next, I have to eat a little crow here. And Bill, you can go ahead and go back to the double screen because I want to see your facial reaction.
Okay.
So we all know that for the last couple weeks, Bill and I have been outspoken about Modern Warfare 3,
Yeah, we have.
and that I'm not going to get it. You
Because
know,
it's a
it's
waste of money.
waste of money, this, that, and the other thing. So last week I bought it. I
Tommy.
do have Modern Warfare 3.
Tommy.
I've been playing it. Um,
Tommy.
oh, I did it. I
Uh,
did it. I clicked that mouse button right there, buddy.
oh no, Tommy.
Um,
Why?
some interesting stuff about this. Now, for those of you in the audience who don't know, I am a team deathmatch player. I don't
Con-
play search and destroy or anything like that.
Connoisseur.
Yeah, and couple right off the bat. These are all older maps, all digitally remastered. Personally, I spoke with another content creator, and him and I actually gamed together with it. Um, this could have been a DLC pack. This straight up could have been a $40 DLC pack for Modern Warfare 2. There was no reason to come out. I haven't done the campaign because I still have not seen anything on the internet about the glitch being fixed. Where if you play the campaign mode in 3, then you go to play 2, and all of your loadouts are back to basically factory settings. So I'm not that brave, but I have done my research with multiplayer. One, you run a lot faster. It's like you're on a constant stim and you book all over the map. No joke. All your loadouts from Modern Warfare 2, once you get to a certain level, I believe it's level 10, and you start unlocking your custom loadouts, you can port over all of your Modern Warfare 2 loadouts. I mean, you got to rebuild your weapon, but all your weapons from Modern Warfare 2 are in there. So I'm still camo grinding Modern Warfare 2 in 3. The maps themselves look good. I am enjoying it, but that does not mean I'm constantly on it. So, like, if Bill and I decide later on today we're playing Modern Warfare, we're going to be on Modern Warfare 2
Yeah,
because the
because I
way they
don't have
set it
it.
up. Yeah. Well, the way they set it up, you actually choose either or. I could actually back out of 3 and go right into 2. I don't got to reboot, nothing.
But my question is, did you get the premium vault package? What?
No, I got the base package.
Okay. So is it worth the $70 though? Because everybody's been complaining about
No,
that.
it's not
It's
worth $70.
then why did you get it?
Let me
That's
see.
my
What would
question.
be
Why? Because I didn't get it. It's not like it's like I got it to play with Bill. Because now you're gonna force me to get Modern Warfare 3 to play with
No,
you.
I
Like
most
that's
certainly will not. I would say save the $70. Keep it in the account because we will be playing GTA 6.
yeah. I will say. I've been waiting for the email to pre-order for GTA 6 because as soon as that drops, I am pre-ordering it.
You and I are probably going to pre-order that
100%.
within like milliseconds of one another.
Yes, and I already told my wife that's actually back when the rumors of GTA 6 happened. This happened at the beginning of this year, I think. And when I heard it, I turned to my wife. I said, "I am sorry. This is one of those things I'm not going to ask for permission to do. But if there's when GTA 6 is coming out, no matter the cost, I'm getting it." So yes, it's definitely gonna be a pre-order. But I eventually what I was waiting for was also Modern Warfare 3, like maybe a sale for Christmas or for Black Friday to come down because if it's I wouldn't mind if I got it for like $30, but like if it's not worth the $70, I'm gonna hold off on it. So
Well, that actually kind of leads me into an interesting thing.
oh
A fellow friend of ours who was a PS4 player. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything about the PS4. I don't. I'm a PC gamer. I'm kind of. I understand how it works, but I'm a little out of touch with the console, which I have something interesting about the console games as well. Old school console games. Um, if you have the PS Premium Game Pass, and it's a monthly subscription, a
yeah,
mutual friend of ours watched a half-hour video. They gave him a code. He got Modern Warfare 3 totally free.
that's that's wild.
That is, yeah,
That's
it is
wild.
pretty wild. But
That's PS4. I'm an Xbox guy slash PC guy. So
yeah, yeah, and there's nothing on it for PC. But yeah, even if you like, if the show ended and we were talking afterwards in our debrief, and be like, all right, I'm gonna go pick up Modern Warfare 3. I'm gonna be like, nah, brother, just we'll stay on 2. It's fine. And to answer your question directly, the reason why I bought it, my inner child won the argument.
But it's so. I remember when Tommy texted me and that he said he got it. I was like, we've literally just been talking about how garbage this game is on this show,
Yeah,
and it
and
just
I got it solely for the multiplayer.
yeah. That's the thing is, believe it or not, like I'm a huge GTA fan, but when I first got GTA 5, it was primarily for the multiplayer, and I'm not gonna lie, I haven't played the full story. I've played bits and pieces of the story, but not the full story. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I when that does go live, like for multiplayer and online
Hmm.
and stuff like that,
Yeah.
yeah, I foresee you and I on that. And then that whole story mode.
Hmm.
Mm,
Well, I think what I'll probably end up doing is streaming story mode initially, because especially when it's new, that's what it's gonna be the biggest thing is getting through the
Sure, to
story.
get up the gameplay and see what's going on.
Yep, and all the new features and stuff like that, and then from there we can. I'm gonna plan on branching off into multiplayer, but GTA 6 is definitely gonna be a staple of my streaming because it's such a iconic game
Yes, it
and
will.
series. All right, well, any more updates, Tommy?
No, no, that's it. And I normally do give a flight simulator update, but I'll be brutally honest with everyone. I've been enjoying being a granddad, and I actually have not been on the sim in about a week.
What?
Yeah,
Crazy.
I booted it up because there was an update. I don't know what the update is, but I've been spending quite a bit of time with the little boys who are doing well. So
Yeah, and I mean, I was this week. Tommy and I were talking. I haven't really been. I've had a lot of adult responsibilities this week that I've had to handle. Um, I've attempted to stream, I think twice, the new City Skylines 2 that came out, but I was having so many technical issues with my this microphone right here, Rode Connect, or the Rode into USB Mini, that I ended up having to stop the streams halfway through. So yeah, it's been kind of a difficult week for gaming this week. So
I kind of felt your frustration through the text messages yesterday.
oh, I was so upset. I don't understand because like right now it's working fine. So what makes but the Rode Connect application doesn't pick up the microphone anymore. Even though I've uninstalled it, reinstalled it, did the firmware, I did everything that support has reached out to me, and they're like, "Well, what about the cord?" It's like this is the cord that I bought 2 months ago that came with my microphone. There shouldn't be an issue with the cord. But that's one last thing I gotta try. But like right now, it's doing fine. It's sticking okay. But I'm thinking it's something with OBS and like Road Connect being open. So I'm slowly working through it. But the good news is I do have my good old snowball microphone that I've used previously that's never failed me once. So if push comes to shove, I can always strap that bad boy onto my stand until we can get this fixed. But anyways, tangent train, bringing it back. Thanks Tommy for the updates on gaming news. I will now take a stab at automotive news here. So, with automotive news this week, we're not going to be talking about anything CDL related here. What we're going to be talking about is this is from Reuters. So, if you're not familiar, there's some bigger or more mainstream like Motor Trend, Reuters, Edmunds, stuff like that. So that's where I'm gathering a lot of my information from. And this is I was just scrolling through because originally Justin was supposed to be doing this segment, but he kind of pulled the fast one on us at midnight or 12 hours ago, so at like 6:30 p.m. our time, and said, "Sorry guys, I'm not doing the show." So I kind of had to scramble for this one. So I do apologize, but I did find this one. I thought it was pretty interesting. So this is a Reuters.com article. It talks about SUVs and trucks with hoods taller than 40 inches are 45% more likely to cause fatalities and pedestrian crashes, according to the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety. Now, when I first read this, I 100% thought that they were talking about like visibility, right? Because I don't know if you've ever been up in a truck on a big SUV, it's really hard to see like right in front of the truck, right? Or the SUV. So I was thinking, oh, you know what? The main reason why this is occurring is because of visibility, right? That was my initial thoughts reading this. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the bluntness of the hoods. So what they're saying is that the bigger trucks are bigger and more blunt. They're more square because I mean that's your classic for Ford F-150, your Silverado, stuff like that. And because of the bluntness of the hoods, that's why it's more likely to cause a fatality in a pedestrian crash. The Institute of Highway Safety or Insurance Institute of Highway Safety estimates that there would be a drop of nearly 20% in the likelihood of a pedestrian fatality if large vehicles were made the hoods lower to the ground and sloped versus just straight and wide, which is amazing to think about because I didn't even think about that when I was reading this, but because like I said, I thought it was visibility, but to make it less blunt. But the problem is the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, or NHTSA, um, or National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, excuse me, the fuel economy standards that have led to car manufacturers making bigger vehicles, because basically the bigger the vehicle, the lower the fuel efficiency target point is. So manufacturers are making these bigger, heavier cars in order to make sure that they can meet the target. Which because the bigger the car, the lower the target for fuel efficiency. The U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg states that the rise of traffic-related deaths is in fact a crisis, and the U.S. government has allocated $800 million to improve the infrastructure aimed at pedestrian and vehicle safety. So that's something that I honestly didn't even think about, was because as soon as I read that article, I was thinking it has to do with visibility, right? Because you're up high, short person walks in front, light goes green, you can't see him, thump thump, you know. But what it's talking about is just the bluntness, like just the shape of the vehicle in the front is more likely to cause a fatality than if it was sloped. So I guess if someone were to like go over the top of the hood versus just done.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of rolls into what we spoke about with the EMT training last week and that
Yeah, the trauma.
kinematics trauma. Yeah, that's a very typical blunt force trauma scenario.
I was going to ask you, in your medical opinion, I mean, physics wise, it makes sense. But let's say there was a truck, right? Let's just say a F 150, right? Not lifted, nothing, just a standard F 150 with the standard, like, front square top, right? Hitting a person at, we'll call it 45 miles an hour, right? Versus, let's just say the same type of truck, but with a sloped, more narrow, or like lower sloped front.
More of an aerodynamical shape to the front hood and grill,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if
So
you
going
will.
45 miles an hour and hits the same person the same way. Is that really going to affect the survivability of a crash like that?
Yeah, it is because if we take, I can make a, for those of you who remember him, I could take a Gallagher thing here. So we take that blunt 150, right? We put a watermelon
Okay.
at an average person. We'll call the average person five
Mhm.
foot seven, right? And you put
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
watermelon at the 5'7" level. We ramp it up to 45 miles an hour and we whack it,
Mhm.
right? The watermelon is going to do this. It's going to be pushed out and come across. It's not good. Some of it will come up above the hood, but on that blunt front end of the vehicle,
Mhm.
the momentum is going to take it with us.
Okay.
And momentum sometimes is like water. When with the object that's struck,
Mhm.
it's going to take the path of least resistance to get away.
Okay. Oh, okay.
After the impact. Now, if we turn around and we got the like an Astro, like the
Yeah.
minivan, the old Astro,
Yeah.
where it was very, like very sloped.
Yeah.
We do the same exact thing that's coming up over the hood
Okay. So it's
because
the
of the shape
difference.
of the vehicle.
So it's the this what is it called? It's not the fall that kills you. It's the sudden acceleration. Kind of the same
Yep.
thing. So it's whereas a blunt force is just you're just getting smacked with a larger surface area, and there's really nowhere for you to go. A sloped hood, on the other hand, there's less impact because there's a place for you to go, basically, up and
Yeah.
over. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. Because if it's standing like this and you have a sloped hood,
Mm-hmm.
you go like this.
Okay.
If it's a blunt hood and someone is standing right there, it's like that.
Gotcha. Okay. That does make sense. I didn't even think about asking your medical opinion on that when I was reading the article last night, but that's a good, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, so the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety is asking that car manufacturers make their vehicles a little bit lower, or the bigger vehicles a little bit lower, and with sloped hoods, because that could reduce by potentially 20% the likelihood of a fatality due to a pedestrian accident. So,
Yes. Actually, we have a direct question. I understand that.
hmm
And Scott, it's yes, and I'll answer that question as soon as we get to the Q&A session right after what's coming up to be our very favorite part of the show.
Yep, we do have a viewer Q&A for those of you that are watching. Feel free to ask all your questions. We're not ignoring you. It's just where we have a whole segment for that towards the end of the show that we answer everybody's stuff. So we do appreciate your patience. And it is our favorite time. It is jargon in a jiffy. So jargon in a jiffy is basically our industry, both Tommy's and mine's, has its own nomenclature, its own terminology, and sometimes it can seem a little intimidating. And the whole point of Jargon and Jiffy is a word game, not only to teach one another a little bit more about our industries or careers that we're in, but also to educate you all on what the terms mean so they're not so intimidating. So the way this works is Tommy will go first. Tommy will mention the word and then use the word in a sentence to give us context. And then it's my job or your job. You can join us in the chat and try to guess along with us. Um, is just trying to figure out what it means. So without further ado, jargon and jiffy, take it away, Tommy.
Okay, good times, good times. So my jargon in the Jiffy term is the MERV,
Okay.
MERV, the MERV,
Merv.
and I will use it in a sentence, but it is actually something that I have said during my EMS career
Okay.
3 times, and I quote myself. Centro with my unit number, I can't give that out.
Okay.
I am calling for a level 1 MCI. Please roll the MERV.
Merv over. All right.
We have a guest.
Oh, what's up?
That was the cat
I
just
was
jumped
wondering.
in.
I was like, what's that weird shadow? Okay. So, MCI. Can you explain what MCI is? Because it's
Mass
another acronym.
casualty incident.
Okay. A MERV. Is it a vehicle? Is it a type of
It is
vehicle?
a vehicle. It is.
Um, Mass emergency response vehicle.
That's it. That is it.
I can
Uh,
spell words.
generally, and that's exactly what it is. Generally, the MERV is a bus,
Okay.
like legit
Oh.
straight up a bus. The ones that we had in New York, we could fit 4 stretchered and 8 seated patients in them.
That's pretty
And
good.
yeah, they only come out on the big things. Each borough has their own individual MERV, and they're numbered MERV 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even though
Okay.
there's 5 boroughs, we don't let Staten Island have one. They borrow Brooklyn's.
So the MERV is basically what's in a MERV then? Is it
Every supply that an EMT or a paramedic has in an ambulance,
mhm.
it is in a lot. There's limited, but there's enough on that MERV to stock 2 trucks of paramedics, including like IV supplies. The only thing it doesn't carry is the medications that a paramedic would have. That will still come out of the equipment from that ambulance.
Okay.
And all the boo boo supplies, oxygen delivery, all sorts of stuff like that. In
Okay, and
fact,
so is it a big ambulance? Like is there a
it
place
is
for stretchers
technically
and stuff?
a state licensed ambulance.
Mhm.
And now back in the day in the 90s, and I'll never forget him. His name was Marty. He drove MERV 4, which is assigned in Queens.
MERV Mari.
Yep. And Marty was the best. He was one of the original EMTs in New York City in the early
Wow.
60s. His New York State EMT number was 3.
That
That's all it was. It was just a 3 on his credentials.
was it. That's just
That
that.
that was it. And now I won't give you the full number, but I got mine in 1990 and it's 6 digits and it started with 146.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, so it's definitely one of the OGs.
Yep. But I mean, Marty, you would get on citywide, you'd call for the MERV. Um, 5 or 6 minutes later, you'd hear, MERV 463. And the Marty would pull up, he would get the generators going, he would get this entire vehicle set up. So all we had to do was board it and start doing our thing. Right. But sometimes when you're not using it, where a boss called for it, but we didn't really have a high enough patient count to warrant
Mhm.
it being on scene.
Yeah.
This is where Marty showed his expertise, especially in the winter. We get on and we're like, all right, Marty, get that pot of coffee going, get the cards out. Yeah. And literally, he had a deck of cards.
Okay,
He
so
had an actual Mr. Coffee pot with everything you needed: powdered creamer, sugar, tea bags.
okay, so
Uh,
to bring it back onto the tracks here, a MERV is basically a mass casualty vehicle
yep.
that they can basically it's a big ambulance where they can treat more patients than what you could in an ambulance.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Sorry, we are going off the coffee train there.
We
Just
were
going.
because I miss Marty. He,
Yeah.
he was he was a great guy.
That was a good one. Yeah, when I heard MERV, I was like MERV over. Um, but when you said it, and then you said MC or MCI, and I was like, what is MCI? It's not Kansas City International Airport. So yeah, as soon as you said mass casualty, I'm like, oh, okay, so it has to be a big vehicle.
Yeah, it's literally, if you Google search the New York City bus,
Hmm.
it's about the size of it.
Nice. All right. So my jargon for this week is turtle. The sentence is I had to offset my takeoff roll slightly to avoid hitting the turtles. So turtle or turtles, and it's not as cruel as it sounds. It's not Florida, and mind you, like down in Florida, we've seen in Orlando, I've seen alligators and turtles on the taxiway, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not the actual animal.
Are they vehicles?
No, not vehicles. We definitely don't want to hit any vehicles. That
No,
is
no, but like you hit turtle, like automatically you think of like a slower moving. If you're,
vehicle.
yeah, because
Well,
the tugs, fuel trucks, and all the
yeah,
other
no,
traffic.
we just call those tugs and stuff like that. In O'Hare, we have the yellow ops cars that I call the screaming taxis because they drive like maniacs, like absolute maniacs in O'Hare. Everything else, even the broom team, which is the snow remover team during the winter. By the way, shout out to the broom team in O'Hare. You guys rock. You guys are amazing. Um, but they're always escorted by these yellow pickup trucks, and these ops trucks drive like madmen. They drive like 90 miles an hour on the taxiways. They do, we call them crazy Ivans, where they just randomly turn around. Like we've been sitting there and had to slam on the brakes because they're just like come out of nowhere. Like no, I don't know who trains them or whatever, but they're always doing something crazy. But we call them the screaming taxis. But those, so
And your 7.3 is not enabled with stealth mode, correct? So he does know you're there.
As long as he's using his mirrors, yeah, he should know that we're there. It's unbelievable, and I don't know if it's just it may be one guy that I'm seeing because I don't see it all the time. It's not every single screaming taxi out there that does it, but there it's just every now and then you'll see one zip by. You're like, where the heck are you going? But anyway, so turtle is not a vehicle. Good guess though.
Um, does it have to do with the taxi lighting system?
It might. What part of it?
I would think not the center line, but I would think the raised marker lights that are on the side of the taxiways. Yeah, they stick up on the yellow poles.
Well, I mean, we don't hit those anyways. But here's a sentence: I had to offset my takeoff roll slightly to avoid hitting the turtles. So you're
Yeah, I'm rolling
close,
that around.
huh?
I'm rolling it around in my
Okay.
head.
So you're close. It does have to do with lighting. Da-da. Oh wait, no, I can't sing that because that'll get us copyrighted.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get in trouble for that one.
I can't say that.
Great. Now I got that in my mind too.
Yeah,
That I
sorry, I
appreciate you,
can't
brother.
sing the Jeopardy theme. We'll get DCM made. You're close. You're right there. Just listen. I had to offset my takeoff roll slightly to avoid hitting the turtles. Is the sentence?
Is it the runway lighting?
What
The
part of
white
the runway?
runway lighting, like as you come in over the threshold?
Uh, no. Well, okay. So it depends on what you're talking about because like there's white runway like edge lighting and then there's green threshold lighting. Like what lighting are you talking about?
The white lighting where the touch don't as you're approaching, right? You would see the white lighting
You
for
mean
the
in the
touchdown
touchdown
zone.
zone?
Yeah.
Not quite. It's kind of the same thing but not quite. It's like similar but kind of. What's special about why would you call those lights turtles?
Because I would think they have kind of like a shell over them.
Okay. So is it specific to the touchdown zone lighting or are there lights that have that shell to them that are
Intersecting runway?
no, no, okay. So the the lights with the shells, where are they normally placed? It's not along the side, right? Of the
No,
runway. They're where are they?
they're at the end of the runway. The
Are they
ones
at
I'm
the end of the runway? Are touchdown zone lights at the end of the runway?
no, they go, what is it, the 1,000 foot mark?
Okay, so are they flying in the air? Are they sitting in the terminal? Where are they physically?
Physically at the end of the runway.
No, they're in the ground, Tommy.
Are they really? All right, I give up. You got me on this one.
Oh my
I
god.
will wave the
You
white flag there.
no, you were so close. You were so close. And you just I was trying to walk you on, but you kept walking around. You keep
I tend
me
to do that.
one of my viewers well, not one of my viewers, one of my friends got it in the TikTok live chat. So, um It's basically the center. I was referring to the centerline lights, but it's any lights that is embedded into the ground. So it could be taxiway center lights. It could be touchdown zone lights. Not the edge lighting, because the edge lighting is up on poles, and not the approach lighting necessarily. But the approach lighting, let's say you have a displaced threshold, right?
Okay.
The approach lighting can be inlaid into the actual concrete, and they're protected with those little hard shell covers. We call those turtles. And the reason why like I would have to offset my takeoff roll slightly is if you're rolling down the runway and you're hitting every single one, it's sitting there going thump 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 thump, and you can hear it on the nose wheel as you're going down. Now the good thing is they're usually not dead center on the center line. They're usually offset to the very like you have that big thick white strip down the
Yeah.
middle. It's usually off to the either right or left. It's never on right on center line. So if you're going down the runway, it's to the left, and you start hearing the thump 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 thump. That means you're slightly left of center line, so you correct just slightly right of those, so you don't get the thump 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 the entire way down the takeoff roll.
Gotcha.
So
See, now if you do that on the highway, we call that driving by braille.
oh yeah, well that's or yeah the rumble strips yeah
Yeah.
yeah we do that all the time on ATS
All right, that's a
unfortunately.
good one. I'm giving you 5 out of 5 on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you're so close. You're so close. I was trying to walk you on. It's just like you said the center line. I'm like, or what did you said taxi lights? I'm like, yeah, taxi lights is close. And then you're like, the ones on the side. I'm like, no. And then you're like, the ones at the end of the runway. I'm like, you're getting kind of close. Where is it?
Yeah. So, all right, that's 2 weeks in a row that you stumped me, which means this half calf coffee is out the door. We're getting
Out the
regular
door. Yeah,
full caffeinated blend next
gotta
week.
gotta get the
Game
full
back
one.
on.
Game on. Yes. No more. We're like I said. Now it's just you and I. I have to do the hard ones because there's a lot of stuff that you already know because we sim together. So I do have to change things up a little bit. Um, all right. So that ends our jargon in the Jiffy segment. Now we're going to move on to another favorite of ours, which is going to be Career Corner. So Career Corner is where Tommy and I talk about our specific careers and how you can get involved, or if you're trying to pursue a career, either to be a professional aviator or a medical worker. We just talk through the different building blocks of that. Each week is going to be a progressive building block to get you not successfully through your training and what you need to become a certified either EMT or medical worker or a professional pilot. Up first, I believe it is Tommy. Tommy's going to be talking about week 4, which is the beginning of clinicals.
hmm So one of the things in week 4, it does not replace your classroom time and your lectures, but we're going to start sending you guys out on your clinicals. And this is where, even though you're still in the infancy of the program, you're going to see a lot of things that we're talking about uh, start to happen. Now, everyone that's watching, we've all been to a doctor. So you get to shadow the emergency room doctors around when they're actually going and doing their patient assessment. So you're actually going to see the practical use of it and what it is and how a doctor would go about it. Now, we're by no means at doctor level training or education, but we're not exactly uneducated. So you'll actually see the hands-on process of how a doctor will examine someone in the emergency room. And it's going to be rapid fire because let's face it, it's an emergency room. The more populated the area, the more busy that emergency room will be. Uh, Also, it starts to give you an idea of what's going to be expected. We initially start putting EMT candidates in the emergency room, and that's solely for a safety thing. An emergency room is a much more controlled environment than the back of an ambulance, and we want you to be exposed to talking to patients. And this is where, um, depending on the nurses that are working, you could, if they're really cool, you could go in and talk to patients with a little notebook all on your own and start practicing your patient assessment, your history taking skills. Like, hi, my name is Tommy. I'm an EMT student. Is it okay if I ask you a couple questions? 90% of the time, people are going to say yes, go ahead. And you could ask them, well, what brought you to the hospital today? Are you in pain? What hurt? What did you hurt? What caused you to get hurt? Things like that. And that's all the very, very basic history of present illness, and we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, like why you're there, why you're there to treat that person. Are they sick? Are they injured? And what the course of events was to bring them there. The other, and generally in a class, when a class of 20 is what my conversation is based about. So 10 candidates are going to be working out a schedule for their ER clinicals. The other 10 will be on the ambulance, and you will be with a tenured crew. Sometimes there'll be a paramedic on the truck, sometimes not. It all depends on the schedule and the availability of crews, because later on down the line, I'll get to that and I'll explain it a little bit more in depth, and it'll make a lot more sense. But candidate, and it's happened to me, sometimes they don't necessarily tell you you're going to have a third person rolling around in the back of your truck who's going to have a million questions. I always encourage questions, because if we do a call, we get to the emergency room, we check the patient in, we do what we got to do, and all of a sudden I'm just being barraged by questions from this candidate, means one thing and one thing only: they were paying attention. And that's what you kind of do. Also, I may or may not throw students into the deep end. Be like, hey, did you guys start taking vital signs in the class? Yeah, then how come you're not doing it, dude? Get in there. Um, a person that is very, very near and dear to me, I refer to her all the time as my better half. That's how we met. And that's exactly what I did to her. It was, I believe it was her
Y-
second clinical ride with me. I
Okay,
was
I
like,
would say you might want to clarify that because it sounded like she was a patient and may or may not have been
nope,
under the
she was
influence
an
of.
EMT student.
Okay,
And the very second clinical she was with me, we pulled up, and it was nothing really, really critical. It was a general illness. I looked right at it. I was like, all right, have at it. This is all yours. I'll be standing back here if you need me. Let's see what you got.
that good old
And
Tommy tough love.
yep, a little bit of tough love. But you see, for me as an instructor, having my state credentials as an instructor, if I do that to someone, now I know exactly where they are. I know where they need more work. I know where I could just work with them to continue at that plateau that they're at until we're ready to elevate it to the next step with more knowledge and more training. So, and does it sound unfair, harsh, and miserable of me? Absolutely. Does it stop me from doing it? Nope. Because, Bill, if you were on the truck with me, I need to know where you're at, especially if I'm not an instructor in your class. You can tell me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have absorbed all the knowledge that they offered. Um, right now, it is standard for the National Registry in your clinical time, and it is limited. Uh, you have to have what they call 12 patient contacts to where you're actually interacting with the patient. And that is up to the crew you're riding with, because we sign that paperwork that you hand into your instructor about your patient contact. So, Bill, if you're on the truck with me and you're just kind of sitting there because you knew, I get it. I let it ride and I kind of push you in the direction. But if you're at the end of the program and you're doing nothing, like you don't even want to take a blood pressure, that gets documented. And I won't sign that. I won't sign that form off. Like, dude, I'm not gonna put my signature on something that you documented that you did that didn't happen. That's not how this works. You're not benefiting anyone. And the end goal is you benefit the patients. But we'll discuss more on that in week oh
This was
double
week 4.
digit week.
Yeah, I was. This was week
Not
4.
yeah, it's much further down the line.
Okay,
But again, with the start of these clinicals, it does not necessarily mean you're not in the classroom at night. You'll be doing some double shifts there until you get your clinicals in, and
okay,
that's it. That's week 4. That's the start of week 4. As far as the lecturing and stuff like that, we're still within the trauma modules, and we're still going through anatomy, physiology, and different types of trauma, as well as blunt force that we just
yeah,
discussed, penetrating, uh, all the different traumas that are out there, the different types of shocks. It's a very, very lengthy subject.
mm-hmm.
The shortest that I've ever done it in a classroom that I was actually lecturing was about a week and a half. and
Okay.
that's 3-hour lectures, 5 days a week.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, starting to get into the nitty gritty of stuff.
Oh yeah,
The
it's
hard
time to
stuff.
be big person time.
Yep. All right. Well, that's cool. So that's week number. What do we say that was, Tommy? Week number
That's week
4
4.
of the beginning of clinicals. So that's what you can expect in week 4 of EMT training. Now for step 4 of the aviation career. Something. Let's just review a little bit because it is kind of a lot for the pilot side of things. So step number 1 is your discovery flight. Step number 2 is your private pilot license. Step number 3 is going to be either your instrument rating or commercial time building. Step number 4, which is what we talked about last week, is going to be commercial, either multi or single. And then step number 5 is what we're talking about this week, which is going to be your CFI, CFII, MEI. So basically, you're becoming an instructor. Now, that's my recommended route. Realistically, what's happening right now is you're trying to build time. You have your commercial license. You're able to get paid if you do everything the way you're supposed to, then the way that you're taught in ground school, you're able to get paid for flying. So now what you're trying to do is you're trying to develop experience and work experience to be able to apply to airlines and bigger professional companies in order for you to continue your career. Now, I say CFI, MEI. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. I know there's a lot of people that do like skydive jumping, pipeline inspection. There's other companies out there that don't require as much, but the most common way to get your time built for to go to like the airlines or go work for a bigger like charter company is through CFI, CFII, and MEI. Not to mention, you get to learn and teach the most about your aircraft. The more you teach, the more you understand. Also, you're taking control, not really taking control, but you're piloting command more too. You're looking out for you and your students, so you do have to make some real serious PIC decisions when you are a CFI. So CFI stands for Certified Flight Instructor, CFII stands for Certified Flight Instructor Instrument, and MEI stands for Multi-Engine Instructor. I personally am a current CFI, CFII. At the time when I was about ready to leave for the airlines, I didn't quite have the minimums yet for the insurance to become an MEI. The school was talking about paying for me to do that, but there's often um, a commitment to do it, and I was already on my way out to the airline, so I never got my MEI. But CFI is going to be your initial. CFII is going to be probably your easiest as well. So CFI, I did mine part 61. You could do it part 141. It just depends. Part 61, I did 2 lessons a day for a month and got my I was done in a month, had to wait I think about a half a month or a month for my actual check ride. But basically, you're taking everything you've ever learned from private pilot to commercial, you're putting it into lesson plans, and you're teaching it to your instructor so that they can certify you basically that you can teach someone how to fly safely. There's 2 parts to that. There's fundamentals of instruction, which fundamentals of instruction is its own like ground school where you learn about how people learn and basically the psychology behind learning, and then you take a test, a written test for fundamentals of instruction. Then you also just take your CFI written. I'm sorry, your CFI written is your fundamentals of instruction. Then you'll go through, and the biggest change for you as a pilot is you'll be flying in the left seat. Now you're moving to the right seat to do the instruction. So you'll be doing a lot of the same maneuvers that you did as a private pilot, as a commercial pilot, in the right seat, but you're teaching them. So your instructor is going to play, depending on what like stage you're teaching. If it's a private pilot, your instructor is going to play somebody who has never seen an airplane before, and your job is to teach them and kind of walk them through the course. Whereas a commercial student is like an average student, but you're still introducing them to the commercial maneuvers and so on and so forth. Now, your check ride, my check ride, this was the longest check ride I have ever done. Is my CFI was an 8-hour ground. But since I was part 61, I had to get somebody from the FAA to come do my check ride. I don't pick the DPE for certified flight instructors. You get a DPE or an FAA representative assigned to you. He texted me the night before and said, "Hey, we're gonna do this lesson, and this lesson," which was I think it was like 2 or 3 lessons. I said, "Cool." So I brought my whole binder. When I showed up the next day, he was like, "No, we're gonna go through everything." So I ended up teaching 8 hours of ground school to an examiner, and he had questions. I answered questions, so on and so forth. And it's just a back and forth to make sure you know what you're talking about and that you can teach effectively. Now, luckily, after an 8-hour grueling 8-hour ground, the weather was too bad in Florida for me to actually do my flight, so we got a letter of discontinuance because of the weather, which was worked out great for me because that was a long day to begin with. And then I believe we came back the next day and we went out. I flew an Arrow, which is a retractable gear single engine Piper with I think it's a 200 horsepower engine. We did commercial maneuvers, steep turns, landings, you name it. If it was in the American or the Airman Certification Standards, we did it. but I was teaching. So the whole point was me teaching. And I still remember like one of the things they'll do is try to distract you. So I'm in the middle of teaching a steep turn. I'm at like 50 degrees of bank in this turn, and the examiner is over here with a thing of Tic Tacs, trying to put Tic Tacs. He goes, "Do you want a Tic Tac?" And I'm just sitting there going, "Dude, I am in the middle of this maneuver. Don't." I'm like, "Nope, I'm fine." I'm like, "Just let's just pay attention." But he kept doing that. Was his way to try to distract me. So it's just they're trying to make sure you can teach effectively and safely. Now, CFII is super simple. There's a written associated with it, but CFI there is no time requirement. You just have to show proficiency and that you're able to do or you're able to teach instrument stuff safely. So, like I said, I am a CFI, CFII. MEI is a little more. It's kind of the same thing, but MEI add-on is a little more complicated because you're teaching people about multi-engine, the VMC demonstrations and stuff like that. But yeah, CFI, CFII. Then you build your time. It took me about, I would say, a year and a half to build my flight time to go to the airlines. And then after the next step that we'll be talking about next week is going to be your first airline or professional job. So that is all I got for the CFI CFII portion. And like I said, this is just mainly the time building portion before you head off to be a professional pilot. So with that, that brings us up to our viewer Q&A session. Now, just as a reminder, if you guys do have any questions, you can always place it in chat, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, or TikTok Live. We also have a whole section here under our Torque and Thrust Talk Show on our server for questions. I'll let Tommy go first, because I believe you had a live question, and then one of our original followers, Franco, listed a bunch of questions in there for us to answer. So I'd rather let's do the live one first, and then I'll answer one of these questions from Franco.
Okay, cool. Because is it industry standard when you're going through that to have the DPE? Because if
If you're doing it Part 61, yes.
okay,
If you're
correct me if
Part
I'm wrong. DPE designated pilot examiner.
yes, someone from the
Okay.
FAA.
See, I read that chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, so the live question is from Scott, and Scott has been in every one, and I appreciate him very much. We were talking about the sloping of the vehicles as opposed to the blunt end of the vehicles, the 150.
hmm
Wouldn't there be a greater chance of going through the windshield? And Scott, I'm just thinking right there that you're
Yeah.
talking about the sloped. There most certainly is, but that
Yeah.
does. Um,
But I feel like you would survive. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Just I'm trying to think logically, and you from your medical standpoint, going through a window or a windshield, I feel like it's a higher likelihood of survival than hitting an engine block.
yes,
Right?
you percentage wise, yeah, you definitely have a better survival probability.
Okay.
Um, a vehicle doing 30 that puts you on the hood, as opposed to a vehicle doing Mach Jesus that puts you on the hood.
AKA Tommy and ATS.
Right, aka me and ATS, and this is why I'll always drive a Mac, and I won't have like those more
That's
aerodynamic
true.
Freightliners.
That's true. We don't that's we're driving our Max versus our Peterbilt 379s.
Yes, yes. One of the other examples too is we're in November. Um, across most of the country, for those of you who see it on the sides of the highways, there's always someone picking up a deer.
Yep.
But look at those vehicles.
Yeah.
The vehicles that have more of a slope, you'll see the stars and the cracks in the windshield and stuff like that because that deer came up and over.
Yep. So, I mean,
You
and
know,
that makes sense. Yeah, more likely to go to windshield, but I think you're more likely to survive a windshield impact, like going up into a windshield, than getting just slammed in the face with a engine block.
sure. And then you know what, we could probability this for a
Yeah.
month of Sundays because
Yeah.
enough momentum. You're going up the hood. You might go through the windshield. You might hit that A frame, and it might act
Yep.
as a bowling alley, and you put you up and over. And
Yep.
there's a million different things.
And tell you
Either
what, this is
way,
one I don't want to test either. I
no,
really
I
don't
don't
want to
want to
test
test it neither. I don't advise anyone going out and testing these theories.
for
Either
science. No,
way, yeah, either way, I promise you, the result is bad.
it's bad. So if
It's
you're
bad.
driving a large truck or SUV, or you're a pedestrian, look both ways. Be extra cautious, especially about motorcycles. I always am because they're smaller, they're harder to see. So just be careful when you're driving, and that should help also reduce the the amount of fatalities associated with traffic incidents. Um, I have something. Treasy just popped in on TikTok Live. Welcome. He's asking about any commercial check ride tips. Um, it depends. I hate to say that's like my catchphrase nowadays. Is it depends. What maneuvers are you talking about? Just check ride tips in general, because it's basically every check ride's the same. You're gonna have a ground, right? You got to know the regulations and knowledge associated with that certificate. So if you're doing your commercial check ride, know things about common carriage, what holding out is, what you can and can't do as a commercial pilot, because that's gonna be largely what your commercial ground is about. And then for maneuvers, just make sure you have your maneuvers on point. Um, Teresa says in general, but power off 180s. Okay, so power off 180s. Power off 180s is one of my favorite maneuvers of all time because I am a glider pilot. So when we do it, it's like, thank God you turned off that noisy thing, aka the engine, and we do the power off 180. What's hard though is in commercial, the power off 180 specifically, you're doing a precision power off landing. So you come and beam the numbers on the downwind, you pull the power to idle, and you're expected to hit a mark 200 feet down the runway, so roughly about the second strike. But you tell the examiner and your instructor, this is what I'm planning to touch down at. So I'm planning to touch down at the second strike, and you have plus or minus, I think it's 200 feet or 100 feet. I can't remember. It's either 100 or 200 feet from that point. Um, but in terms of tips for the power off on 180, you got to practice because it all depends on the weight of your instructor, the weight of the airplane, fuel load, winds. So, for example, if you have a strong crosswind, uh, let's say that's going to be a headwind on your base, you may have to turn your base in a little kind of dog-legged, a little more close into the runway because you're going to lose a lot of ground speed on the base turn versus a tailwind. So just kind of it takes a lot of planning. The only thing you can do is practice, 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 practice. Because the more powerful 180s you do in the aircraft that you're planning to do your check ride in, the more you're going to get to understand its characteristics. For example, the arrow that I did my power off 180s in for my commercial single, if you go full disc, which is when you full course pitch, you can slow down the airplane a little bit more and get more sync. Or at last minute, you could try to feather or make a fine pitch of the variable pitch prop, and that gives you a little extra boost, little glide distance if you're going to be short. So it's just like little things like that. So just practice, practice, practice. Um, let's see. Franco, one of his many questions that he posted in our Discord is how do bidding system works, like what you can and can't do. That's a great question. Bidding systems for the airline vary. Generally speaking, you either have what's called line bidding, which the company builds like a schedule for the month, and it's called line number one, and then builds a different one, and that's line number two, and you bid in order of preference which line you want. So you can't exactly pick what days. You just have to pick which schedule works best for you, and then order it that way. Um, that's what Envoy did for the longest time. It was kind of it kind of sucked because you were at the mercy of what the company put out there. Whereas PBS is preferential bidding system, and there's different companies that make it. It's a little more, it's way more efficient. But basically, instead of having just these whole month trip schedules that you're selecting from, it's based off trip or sequences. So rather than the whole month, you're picking out of like 4 day, 3 to 4 day sequences. You tell the computer what you don't want, and then it goes through and sorts it out based off your seniority, and then assigns you those trips and builds you a schedule versus the company building you a schedule and you pick from those. So those are two different PBS, preferential bidding, and line bidding are two different ways of doing it. I could definitely go. I could do a dissertation on that, but I'm not going to. Tommy, do you have any more? Nope. Oh, I can't hear you, Tommy.
I bet you that helps,
There
huh?
we go. Yep.
No, I'm clear. Scott just made a comment. Remember, gross tonnage will always win. He's got a point.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we always joke that when I was talking about the screaming taxi, the yellow ops trucks, right? It does. The captain and I always go, well, it doesn't really matter if he hits us because obviously we're going to win that battle. So it's a 180,000 pound airplane versus a seven and a half ton truck or a 7,500 pound truck. So Okay, cool. So that will segue us over into our weekly discussion topic this week, which is let's talk a little bit about etiquette. So last week, I was telling Tommy some of my commuting woes and adventures that I was having last week. Like, like the flight attendant, I was sleeping, and the flight attendant, she was doing a good job with customer service and handing out full cans of pop or soda to everybody. And but the problem is we're on a CRJ 200. I'm in the aisle, and the cart's like right here. So she's literally popping all the soda in my face. So every time she opens one, I'm getting sprayed with soda in the face. And so I finally had to say something because I was like getting soaked. But anyways, what we're talking about today is etiquette in our career. So etiquette is something that isn't necessarily taught. It's not in a manual, but it's something that you learn either by word of mouth or by watching others on how. So best practices is a good way to put etiquette. Would you say,
Mhm.
Tommy?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So, Tommy, did you want to start this one off? Did you have some etiquette tips or tricks or things that people wouldn't really know about the your career field?
I have a little frog in my throat. How about you start this so I could mute myself and
Okay, you
get
need
get a drink here?
yeah, okay. So, this is
It's right
actually
here.
okay, cool. Yeah, I can start. No worries. No worries. So this is actually something that I've always thought about because remember, as a commuter, I generally speaking, am flying twice a week to work, from work, on top of as a passenger, on top of deadhead transportation, which is where the company flies me in the back of the airplane as a passenger, or just flying in general. So I fly a lot as a passenger. And so over the years of commuting, I've noticed things that I'm just like, it'd be someone needs to teach some etiquette, right? So remember, these aren't things that you should do. They're just a suggestion from someone who has flown quite a bit in my time for being a 29-year-old pilot. So and Tommy, feel free to chime in as I'm going through. I'm not going to do the whole gambit because if I start from the moment you get to the airport to the moment you leave the airport, it's going to be a 10-hour show. But I'll start from the boarding area and work my way chronologically through a flight. So this is more like tips and tricks, but they're also etiquette. So, first and foremost, if you hear the announcement, please do not crowd the boarding lane or line up until your group is called. Proper etiquette is to not do that. If you're in group number 9 and you bought the economy plus ticket or basic economy ticket, then don't stand up. It's going to take a while for them to get to group 9. Proper etiquette is to stand out of the way. You can line up, like if you're on group number 2 and there's people off to the sides and stuff like that, you can line up on the sides, but don't stand in front. Don't be in the way while other people are trying to board. That leads me to another etiquette tip: board with your group. There's a lot of people that do this whole board jumping thing where people are jumping ahead of groups and stuff like that because they want to put their bags up. When you do that, you kind of mess up the people who are trying to put their bags up and who are properly boarding with their group. If you would like to board with an earlier group, there are a couple ways you can go about that. So, one of the ways you can go about that is by getting either a credit card with the company. So, most airlines have some sort of credit card, and generally speaking, it's free. So, if it's a financially, and I will disclaim this or make this disclaimer, if it is a financially safe and reasonable thing for you to do, you may want to try the credit card because, like, for example, with United, if you are flying, like, bought a ticket with them and you have a credit card with them, you're automatically group number 2 versus like group 3, 4, 5, 6. Or you can join their loyalty program. Most airlines have a mileage loyalty program that you don't have to be paid to be a part of. You just rack up points as you fly with them. The more you fly with them and utilize that free loyalty program, you'll have higher status and you'll generally be able to board earlier to get your bags up. Or the one that nobody likes to hear, buy a better ticket. If you want to be the first one on the airplane to put your bag up, buy a first class ticket. Otherwise, wait your turn. That's a huge etiquette thing. Is just people jumping on when they can. So just something to keep thinking about. Now, another etiquette thing or tip: have your tickets ready to go. Once you get up to the thing, don't be fumbling around trying to find it. Just have it on your phone, have it in your hand, and scan it. When you get down to the airplane, okay, you had all this time right in the terminal. That's another thing. Make sure you go to the bathroom before you go on the airplane. This is turning more into tips and tricks with Captain Bill, but just go, trust me, because the last thing you want is to be the person that has to get up and we're not pushing because you stood up to go to the bathroom. Take care of your business before you get on the plane. At least so that you can get up to cruise and we turn off the fast seatbelt sign. But anyway, so you're coming down the jet bridge. please, please, please have some sort of plan in mind on how you're going to get like what you need in the seat in front of you, underneath you, what you're putting up overhead. Your goal should be to minimize the amount of time you're spending in the aisle, not only to help the boarding process, but remember, the longer you take to put your crap in to the overhead bin under seat and get in your seat, there's some poor elderly person or child standing on a very cold jet bridge in Chicago waiting to get in because you're taking your sweet time. So, once again, etiquette dictates just minimize your time getting into the airplane. Now, let's talk about bags. Tommy and I have talked about this before with baggage and stuff like that. The only thing that should be going in the overhead, etiquette wise, is things with wheels. So if you have a rollerboard that's like 22 inches or less, something with wheels, that's what goes up in the overhead. Um, Handbags, briefcases, um, jackets, gift bags from Disney World. That's not what goes in the overhead. The reason so many people end up having to check their bags in the first place is because often people put stuff like that up there um, rather than utilize the underspace in the seat in front of them. Okay. So the proper etiquette is to just put your rollerboards up there, get out of the aisle, sit down, and hold on to the stuff that you may want to put up there later. Because there still may be space at the end of boarding, but hold on to it. And if there's space, then you can ask the flight attendant or get up before the door closes and put that stuff away. Okay. Now, when you're actually standing or getting into your aisle, I just I may have to stand up for this one, Tommy. Um, when you're getting yep, I'm gonna have to talk. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Okay, so when you're getting into your aisle, big thing, right? The seat back in front of you is not a handle. Okay, let me see. I don't know if people can see this. All right. Oop. Here, I'll do it this way. So when you can see all my lights and stuff. When you get into the airplane, do not grab the seat in front of you, especially if there's somebody sitting here, and do this to get in. Don't do that. Use the armrest. That is exactly what the armrests are for. That's the first time I've ever.
Something went on there and you got muted, buddy. Not hearing you. Can't hear you at all.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Found you.
Yeah, sorry. When I was up, I was moving my microphone around and it jinxed something up. So, um, anyways, so you don't you don't grab the back of your seat. Utilize the armrests that are on your side. That's what they're there for. Just lean on them if you need to, but don't, for the love of God, don't be grabbing the seat in front of you. I've had that happen before. The lady next to me one time on a dead got her hair pulled really hard. Yeah, just don't do that. Now, when you're in the actual your row, right, your row of seats, um, couple things. Window, yeah, you bought the window, but remember that whole row has only one window. So be a team player. Ask them what their preference is. If you're too scared to talk to them, general good etiquette or rule of thumb is from pushback to that first chime when you're in the sky and they start talking about using your larger electronic devices going through 10,000 feet. That's when you can close it because up there, there's really nothing else to see. And then when you hear that landing announcement that they're in their final descent, just go ahead and open it, right? That's generally speaking the best way to go about it. That keeps everybody happy. Or just talk to them, be like, "What's your all's preference?" Because even though you bought the window seat, because that's my personal pet peeve, is someone who buys the window seat and then just keeps the window shut the entire time. And the whole "I bought the seat in order to, so I have the right to do that" is a bunch of BS. Don't do that. That's horrible etiquette. Another thing, armrest. I've seen this all across TikTok. For the armrest, if you're in a three abreast or three seat configuration, person in the middle gets the two middle rests. Armrest, period. The people on the outside get the outboard. If you're a bigger guy like me, I call it the up down maneuver. Let's say they got three guys across, guys on the outboard, arms up, right? And then the guy in the middle gets lower, so there's more space, right? Or vice versa. The two guys on the outside can go down, the middle guy can go up. It just depends on your preference. Um, Remember that the seat in front of you is not yours. The only thing that you own per se with your ticket purchase is the space underneath, the magazine pouch, the tray table, and the entertainment system if it's available. So don't be kicking. Don't rest your bare feet. Oh, that's another thing. Keep your shoes on. Don't rest your bare feet on the seat back in front of you. And also just remember there's a human being up there. So when you're like moving stuff around, just don't be like punching the seat. Just try to be cognizant and considerate of the person in front of you. Now, en route, en route etiquette. One, try not to get up when the fasten seatbelt sign is illuminated. As much as I love Key and Peele, that skit that they did about this fasten seatbelt sign, everybody thinks that they can get up and don't have to follow that sign. That sign is on for your safety. We don't forget about it. Usually, if it's on, it's because we anticipate turbulence or something that's gonna might harm you. But if you do have to get up, especially if you're the person on the inside, make sure you coordinate with the person, obviously, to get out. Um, but if you're also a person who knows they're going to get up a bunch of times during a flight, just get the aisle. Don't buy a window seat. If you can, buy an aisle seat. Now, when we land, number one, just because we land does not mean we're done taxiing. Do not stand up. It sounds like a silly thing, but the amount of times on my commutes while I've landed, I've heard the seatbelts come undone and people start standing up. That is a quick way to get delayed because most airlines require flight crew to notify the cockpit and then they'll come to a complete stop because it is not safe for you to be up. Period. So do not get up. Second thing, don't remove your seatbelts until the fasten seatbelt sign is off and we are at the gate. A lot of people don't realize that when we're taxiing, we're still taxiing at 35, 40 miles an hour in the airplane around O'Hare, around the taxiways. Now, granted, some of you may ride around without your seatbelts in your cars, but in your cars, if you were to have a collision like that without your seatbelt, it could really hurt you. So keep your seatbelts on until we parked at the gate, and not or and the fasten seatbelt has sign has turned off. Now, when we park, good etiquette dictates that if you don't have a connection, like let's say you're going to Chicago and you live in Chicago and you don't have a business meeting to go to, stay in your seat. Especially if you're in row like 32 of a 737. I don't care how quickly you get up, you're not going to be the first one off the airplane. Hate to break it to you. So just stay seated, wait until it's your turn to get out. Now, if you do have a tight connection, it is okay, etiquette wise, to tell either the flight attendants or the people around you that you politely that you have a connection, and if you could, would like to step in front of them. That's completely okay, especially excuse me, especially in a tight connection. It's completely okay to let the flight attendant know, and oftentimes the flight attendant will make an announcement asking for those that don't have a connection to stay seated to allow those who do have a connection off the airplane. So stay seated until your turn to get off the airplane. And then once you're off the airplane, last bit of advice slash etiquette is do not stop in the middle of the jet bridge. If you're waiting for somebody, unless they're kids, if you're waiting for another adult, just go to the top of the jet bridge, stay off the side, and wait for them. Do not wait in the jet bridge. They're very narrow, um, and it gets clogged up really quick. So unless you're waiting for a child or someone that's behind you, just go to the top of the jet bridge and wait for the rest of your party. Excuse me. And that's all I have. That was um that was Captain Bill's short rant slash advice tips on airplane etiquette. Oh man, and I dried out my throat doing that. Oh my god, Tommy.
See, and now I normally do get the window seat, a strategic window seat.
Strategic.
Yeah, well, I like to see the flaps and the slats and
Well, I say,
ailerons working and stuff. So
I mean, window seats in general are disadvantageous. In general, if you, I mean, if you're saying it's advantageous if you're looking out a window, like that's different. But
yeah, I like to see them. For lack of a better term, the more mechanical workings of the wings.
yeah, so you like the window seat. It's not a
Yeah, and
strategy.
then um, funny story. I was sitting next to an older gentleman when I flew out of Gainesville last year.
Hmm.
Great guy. He cracked me up for like that whole entire flight into Charlotte. But he actually did ask, and I'm watching the wing and this, that, and the other thing. And he was like, "Hey, when we get in the air, can you shut that so I could take a nap?" And I just looked at him and smiled, and I was like, "I have absolutely no problem with that." Because I'll be honest with you, I was doing the same thing. So I
Yeah,
shut the shade, and neither one of us wound up napping.
and also another thing, if you want the window closed, you're not in the window seat. Just ask. I've seen this before where people reach across two or three other people and shut the window. Don't do that. Just ask. All you got to do is ask. Your row is your team. That's how I like to think about it. That's your flight in flight team is you three. Because if there's an emergency or anything like that, it's you three. Got to get out of that row together. So just think of it that way. It's a teamwork sort of situation.
Right. And then the other one I have, this is actually pretty funny. It was a couple weeks before I moved out of Florida back up to Pennsylvania. I was flying home to Florida and to Orlando International.
Hmm.
I forget the approach, but it's the one that comes right down the east coast of Florida to roughly Ormond, Daytona Beach, hooks a right, and then
They're all
comes
like
down the
that.
middle of the state to circle around.
Yeah, they're all kind of like that.
And I didn't realize it until I was actually sitting on the aircraft, and I was one of the few people that were not wearing a NASCAR T-shirt. That I was flying home on Daytona weekend,
Nice. Very
and I
nice.
must have had about 6 people X to lean over me and look out the window to see the Daytona International Speedway. And finally, it got to the point. Like this one guy was being really pushy about it for his wife or girlfriend, whoever it was. Dude, you gotta let us look over. You gotta let us look over. So finally, I just looked at him. I was like, man, let me tell you something. I've been up for about 26 hours right now. You are not my friend. I was like, did you buy tickets to the race? And he goes, yes. I was like, well, you'll see it when you're at the race.
Okay, so remind me not to fly with Tommy. Yikes.
Yeah, it was just that entire 2 hours. This guy was just like, "Hey, is it? Hey, hey." I mean, that was, and I literally was up over 24 hours at that point because there was I had a lot to do, and 24 hours in one day was not enough time. So you've been in that situation. Do what you got to do, right? If you got to stay up, you got to stay up and do what you need to do.
Well,
And then
kind
it's
of depends on the situation. Anything with aviation, huge disclaimer there. If I'm flying an airplane, I'm resting. I don't ever do all nighters leading up
well
to
in your
a flight.
career, yes, but like if you were moving you and your wife out of state, coordinating that and trying to get the place you're moving to in line
Hmm.
and coordinate with things that are arriving from the state that you're moving out of. It was a lot and got to do what you got to do. But finally, this guy was just,
Okay. Well,
yeah,
my point exactly. Still be cordial. Be like, don't start a fight on the airplane, Tommy. But generally speaking, just be cordial. If you want to keep it up, you said, yeah, I can. Just like I said, remember, just because you bought the seat, yeah, technically it's a window seat, but there's two other people in that row as well. So just be kind of cognizant of it. All right, Tommy, let's talk some etiquette in the EMT field.
this is actually very simple and very straightforward.
Oh, good, because mine was long-winded, so that'll work out perfect.
The ambulance is the same way the cockpit is of your 7-3.
Hmm.
That cab of the ambulance and even the back of it, that's my office. For 8 or 16 hours or 12 hours a day, that's home. Keep it clean, keep it fueled. It's not difficult. Um, Now this is going to sound vile, but it's really not. Everybody has seen the big ambulances, and they have that big curb door, right, where you open it up and you could step in off the passenger side of the vehicle.
Hmm.
Well, on calls where we're very, very busy and we're going to make tons of garbage, like with bandage wrappings and stuff like that, that actually becomes a garbage pail. We literally, like, if I'm working over a patient and I'm hustling doing what I got to do, I don't have time to find this little garbage pail that the manufacturer puts in the truck. It all gets thrown in that step down wheel well right there. And even when I was driving, yeah, it's no big deal. You go get a garbage pail, you tilt it 45 degrees, you open the door, it kind of magically just finds its way into the garbage pail. And
Okay, and
all you got to do is run them out.
so what was the etiquette part of that? I missed that. Other than you
Keep your
throwing,
truck clean.
there
Hand
it
it off
is.
clean, hand it off fueled. Make sure there's enough paperwork. Now we're in the age where all the, for the most part, all the pre-hospital care reports are all digital. Make sure the tablets are charged. If the vehicle is equipped with a radio charger, make sure the portable radios are charged because, boys and girls, let's face it, when you're outside that truck and it's just you and your partner in the middle of the night, that radio is your lifeline. That is the only thing in the world that's going to be able to bring help to you.
Okay, so what was the part with the charge the radio?
Keep everything charged.
Okay.
And everyone says, oh, these radios have memories and all that. Listen, if you're working for a big municipal system, they could afford new batteries when the old ones go bad. Trust me.
Okay, so
But
keep so we're keeping part of the etiquette's keeping things charged, gassed up,
yeah,
and
and when you now this has happened in the past too. When you're relieved and your relief crew, like my relief crew would be like the first of the day tour guys,
mm-hmm.
most of the time they're there waiting for you. Like we would go to roll call, and the old expression is, well, if you're there on time, you're late. Get there a few minutes early.
Mm-hmm.
Relieve the guys that are coming off the overnights or even at the end of the day tour because they already worked. You're still going to work and offer to help them. Can't tell you how many times, like, my truck, even though I was due to go out at 11:30, my truck ain't showing up until, midnight, quarter after 12. And, now they got to restock it because they had a serious call or something. What'd you guys use? This, that, and the other thing. I'm like, all right, well, I got it. Get out of here. Go. Goodbye. Relieve them early. Give them a helping hand. If you know, take care of one another. That's what it boils down to. Keep everything clean. Keep that vehicle ready to go, and take care of the people you work with. It's that simple.
Okay.
And that wasn't taught. That was something when I was a brand new EMT. I just kind of kept my mouth shut and watched the older guys do what they need to do. And that's what actually taught me camaraderie.
Well, and it's the same thing in the airline industry. For example, how we leave the cockpit as or flight deck for the next person, and it's not taught and it's not standardized. I can't tell you how many times I walked into a pigsty of a flight deck and had to call maintenance to clean it up, because there's people that just don't care. But like for me, for instance, in the 737, when we're coming in, we get a message with our gate and what the next flight's going to be and where they're going. So I'll write down that information because on the 737, the inboard side of the control yoke has the little dial selector, and that's where we dial in our flight number so we can see or remember what our flight number is. I just write it down, but we use that as well. So when I land and we park, on the way in, as long as it's not in a critical situation like crossing a runway or something like that, I'm doing stuff like in O'Hare we use 10825 for the Greater Chicago DME. That's part of the O'Hare 7. I got that tuned in. Dial the speed down to 100. Set the course selectors to whatever one way I think they're going to be using. So if they're going to the southeast or east, I'll set it to 225. I will set the altitude selector to 4,900 feet. The reason why we do 4,900 feet is if that's not a normal altitude to climb to. So that reminds us that we haven't got our that we haven't got our clearance yet. So we'll grab it once we get our clearance. It says climb via the SID 5,000. We'll turn it to 5,000. That tells both of us that we've gotten the clearance. So I'll set that to 4,900. I'll set our engine out acceleration altitude on my side to 1480, which is standard out of O'Hare, 800 feet above field elevation. And then when we park, already got their frequencies already set up for them. I got metering, ground, departure frequency set up. I got ops and ramp control in the number 2 radio. What else do I do? I dial in the next flight number, and then I will put on the landing elevation for the pressurization control. I'll put the next field elevation on there for them. And then if they're going odd or east, or if they're going east or west, I'll put either an odd or even altitude on the top part because I often don't know what cruise altitude they're going to, but I'll guesstimate. And then the last thing I do, and this is the Captain Bill touch, is I take a little Seni wipe because we have alcohol wipes in the cockpit if they're available, and I'll put one on the little clipboard in front of on my yoke, so the next person has something they can grab and wipe down the cockpit before they touch anything. And
What a
that is
guy.
a Captain Bill exit. But the thing is, it's not common though. That's the thing. It's not taught. I have learned that, and everything I do is a culmination of good etiquette that I have picked up from my captains. And then lastly, I always leave my seat about middle height and all the way forward in the cockpit. And you may be like, wait, that sounds kind of like a jerk move. The first thing you want to do when you walk into a 7.3 cockpit is move the seat forward and put your flight bag into the storage area. You can't access that storage area if the seat is all the way back into the right. So when my goal is when the next first officer walks in, he or she can throw down their bag, get everything set up, do the walk around, come sit down, and all they got to do is verify most of the switches that they have to in their pre-flight flow. But frequencies, all the small stuff should already be taken care of. So that way, if they're in a delay situation, it saves them a little bit of time. And also, it's the thought. I do, like when I walk in and I go, ooh, acceleration altitude's already set. Greater Chicago VOR is already set. Altitude's already set. Look at that. It's like, man, this person did, but it's very rare. I feel like I've learned it more from captains than first officers. So when I do it, I'm hoping that I'm rubbing off on the other first officers to be like, oh, I need to do this for the next first officer. So that's etiquette. That's a perfect example of etiquette. It's nobody teaches you to keep your ambulance clean, to keep the radios charged, to just top it off because the next guy should do it, but it's good. It's a courtesy to do it for the next person.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it just, um, it's not hard to do the right thing.
No,
And
it's not.
once you have, just like if you are, if you know you got a plane switch at whatever airport
Hmm.
you are at the time, you
Yep.
know, you do it for a while, it just kind of becomes automatic. Like you don't even think about it anymore. You just do it and you move on.
Yep, and that's part of like I'll do my main after landing flow, which is what's required to do the checklist. Then once we get to a point where we're not doing something critical, right? So like on a long straightaway, or past all the runways that we're crossing, I'll just quickly run through that flow, which starts down here with the radios, goes across and sets everything up for the next flight. And also, it's a good habit to get into because if you're keeping the airplane for that turn, that already sets you up nicely for the next turn. It minimizes my workload for the next turn as well if I'm keeping the airplane.
There you
So
go.
it's just a good habit. Like I said, there's nothing in our manuals that say this is what you have to do. In our manual, it just says do your checklist, basically do your flows and checklists, and you're done. That's it. So everything else beyond that is just a little bit extra that I like to do to make it life a little bit easier on the next first officer, whether it's me or somebody else. So well, folks, that is what we have on today's episode of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. I'd like to thank all of you that came out today. So Ben, we see Riley here in TikTok Live, Treasy, Mason, Snowy. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Scott on Tommy's feed. It sounds like he's a regular on our show. So thank you, Scott, for joining us. I do appreciate you all joining us today. Our next week episode is going to be November 22nd. We're just gonna call it the same time, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Central. Tommy and I do need maybe changing the time a little bit because the early show time was often used to accommodate um, Justin and his schedule. So we may change that a little bit so it's a little bit later, but we'll let you know. But for right now, we'll plan on next episode being on November 22nd at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. And the discussion topic for that one is going to be another controversial topic. Tommy, you ready for this? You ready
Love it.
for this?
Bring it.
A Nightmare Before Christmas. We're going to be discussing whether or not it's a Christmas movie or if it's a Halloween movie. So we'll make sure you guys tune in for that next week. But until then, on behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I am Bill,
I am Tommy.
and thank you all once again for watching. And we will see you next week.